2026 ins and outs, what we're leaving in 2025, 2026 mood boards and 2025 wrapped. Religion of self-optimization with its liturgy, new year, new me, is flooding our social media feeds right now. Reinventing every fiber of your being to become this new, improved, optimized version of yourself for the new year. Someone smarter, happier, cooler, less anxious and depressed. Someone who runs marathons, eats all the Brussels sprouts on her plate. Amazing. 1 year older, 1 year closer to thinking about retinol cream, Botox, your future, kids, families, freezing your eggs. 2026 ins and outs, but all I want to be is in my bed and out of this constant turmoil that tells me I need to improve the person that I am in 2025. But what if I'm still figuring out who she is? How do you reinvent someone that's still in the blueprint phases? I've been trying to work on this for the last 11 months. Let me live. And that's what this episode is all about. The horrors that come with the end of the year and December, just when you're trying to take a break. The great lock-in is all over your social media feed. So let's talk about it. December, every sign has its own mode. I was in love with the Sagittarius. From the Diving Board is a show hosted by me, charlichats, dedicated to decoding digital culture by unpacking the hidden politics behind the screen. Before we get into today's episode, I just want to give I just really want to check in with you guys because I want to give a huge public service announcement to say thank you for one of the best years of my life. That is so dramatic, and I've already spoken about it over on my Instagram at From the Diving Board, which you really should go and follow because I do drop a lot more ideas. I've been posting a lot of my video essays in written format there as well, which I also post on From the Diving Board on Substack. But I recently got my Spotify Wrapped for this year for this podcast. And thank you if you're watching and listening on YouTube as well. Love you guys. And any platform that you come from, love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. But my Spotify Wrapped was actually one of the most insane moments to just reflect on the number of people that are interested in this content. And it just really, you see numbers all the time, but these statistics really were put together in a way that just felt so meaningful. And I know that you can't reduce the love that I have experienced. I think I wrote that on my Instagram. I cannot reduce the love that I've experienced from you over this last year into numbers or words even. So it's just beyond what's capable of being written. But to see those numbers in the flesh was truly insane. I think some 50,000 of you guys, which I didn't even realize we had From the Diving Board as their top podcast, which first of all, I literally can't even conceptualize that number. Second of all, what? I'm really flabbergasted, and I'm filming this the day after I've received the Spotify stats, and it's really just still, I have not wrapped my head around it. It's truly magical, and just thank you so much for tuning in. One of the biggest, most special aspects of this is that I really feel like this is not really just me at all. This is a community that we're building here. This is a group of people who are showing that you care about ethics and anti-capitalism and anti-patriarchy and all of these things. You care about community, and it's just really powerful and meaningful, honestly emotional, to see how many people care about these really meaningful aspects of life. Which is just so silly. I know this podcast is just examining pop culture from a political lens, and it's fun, and a lot of it's tongue-in-cheek, and a lot of it's silly, but a lot of it is really exciting to just see how many people really do care about these issues and care about making the world a better place. And the fact that we are all here, it is very special. It is just so special. And if you listen to this podcast, just know that there are so many other people who really share similar views to you. And I don't think we all share the same views. One of the things I love about this podcast is that we all feel comfortable, or I at least feel like a lot of us feel comfortable to share our opinions and reflect and have amazing discussions after, and have these literally incredible chats in the comments about how we might disagree on things. And I just think that is something that's really special, and it's amazing to have this space where we all feel comfortable to do that. So thank you for everything this year. I can only say that 2026 is going to be a million times better, a million times bigger. There's so many exciting things in the works with this podcast. I just truly can't quite fathom that. I think I put my first ever podcast episode on Spotify this time last year, maybe even January. No, I think it was December 2024. And so we are a year in, and it's just... I'm speechless. I'm literally, for the first time in my life, guys, she has nothing to say. And that's a testament to you guys. You did it, guys. You did it. You shut me up. I've once said that the only way you could get me to stop talking is to cut off my hands. But maybe this is another way, is to just show me astronomical love through like your listening hours and everything. It's just silly numbers. Thinking about it too much is crazy. So we're going to move on into today's episode, which is more of a reflective one and kind of just trying to ground ourselves in this period of end of year, New Year's resolutions. It all feels very chaotic and crazy. I feel like so many social media trends recently have been really in this whole like the great lock-in and getting you to really focus on honing a skill and being the best version of yourself, which is not necessarily in itself bad. But I think that the context and the specific way in which this is being promoted is not the best. It's very easy, as we all know, to compare ourselves on the internet, especially this time of year when work might be winding down or maybe ramping up before you have a little bit of time off over Christmas. And then you have this period of Christmas, which is supposed to be rest and relaxation. And yet you're also being flooded with all of these messages to tell you to use this time to lock in, be the best version of yourself, optimize, calibrate. I don't even know, streamline. All these words that like are usually used for companies are now used for people. There's a real dual pressure going on. The pressure to take the time to relax, reflect on the year, start 2026 fresh, rejuvenated after a period of hopefully some fun and connection with friends and family, versus this other pressure to really like come into 2026 already improved. So let's talk about it. I think this is an episode that hopefully is a grounding episode. I really hope just at the end of the day here that today we can come away from this feeling happy and, I don't know, a bit more relaxed, a bit more ready to kind of take on this content. Anyway, let's get into it. I just watched the intro and this is looking so bare. So like, I'm really sorry. Do yourself a favor and don't look at that part of the video, okay? Awesome. Thank you so much. The end of the year is always a pretty exciting time, but simultaneously can be very daunting and anxiety inducing and overwhelming. The idea of a fresh start and new beginnings brings a level of like relaxation, rejuvenation, but also a real pressure to level up and do better. This is also the time of year when our favorite content creators really capitalize off of this content. And again, I want to make it really clear, there is nothing wrong with using the new year to be this fresh start, new plate, but I think that it can feel very overwhelming. I think it's good to try and make an intention with yourself to leave negative actions, negative energy in 2025. It's a kind of nice clean slate, turn a page vibe, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But among Gen Z, this overall energy and desire to self-optimize has been something that I've been talking about for a very, very, very long time, and I really think it gets quite exacerbated and intensified in a way that can feel a little unhealthy and a little bit negative around the new year. There's no doubt about it, and I've spoken about it many, many times, that Gen Z do tend to feel quite uncertain about their future and about the state of the world. We've inherited a planet that has been destroyed for hundreds of years, with billionaires on this planet that continue to destroy it and not really care about it at all. We live in a world where suddenly power and influence is more aligned with money than necessarily impact in a positive way, or social justice, for example. We live in an era where systems are getting harder and harder to change because those at the top are financially able to do it so easily comparative to us lay people, where democracy feels really, really volatile, where our vote feels so important, but then we see how much money is being fueled into political lobbying, which makes us realize, well, maybe our vote doesn't mean much against all of that. And with that backdrop, it's really, really easy to feel like our impact is tiny. It's easy to feel like we don't have control over a huge part of our lives and a huge part of the context in which we live in. And that feels really hard. That's a bloody tough pill to swallow. I think most of us can agree. Most of us have actually grown up with this idea that we probably will never own a house. We probably won't live up to the same kind of financial achievements that our parents did. We probably will live a very different type of life to many generations before. And the framing of that has been, for the most part, quite negative because, of course, the world is set up in a particular way. And if we're choosing the more unconventional path, for example, that does mean we're putting ourselves through harder challenges. To lock in and gain control of your life then is almost a response to this feeling of lack of control and uncertainty over all of the things that we don't feel like we have control over. When we feel like we can control who we are and self-optimize and glow up and be better at a certain skill, potentially we regain that feeling of influence and impact and purpose that so many people need in their lives. We need to feel like we have a purpose. Over the past few months on TikTok, a large proportion of Gen Z have made a pledge to lock in. It's called the Great Lock-In, in fact. It has a hashtag. And God, that really sounded like a 50-year-old. It has a hashtag, kids. I'm down with the kids. I know those things. My Spotify age was 42, by the way, so I just feel like I had to add that in there. Let a girl love her 90s, 2000s music. Let a girl love Moby. Porcelain by Moby. Fantastic song. Anyway, where were we? Kendall Cunningham speaks about the Great Lock-In. She writes in her piece for Vox, "Currently my feed is full of young people participating in the Great Lock-In, a 3-month challenge that began in September and lasts through to the end of the year. The goal is that participants enter January having already completed a set of goals and established certain habits. A jump start on New Year, New Me." And what I have to say to that is a jump start? Go. I get it. I get the idea of wanting to start the new year as an already leveraged better person. Are you not just moving the new year back to September then? Like, what do you mean a jump start? It actually seems to come from a real place of fear and anxiety. It's like, I simply cannot start the new year on the back foot. I must get ahead. She continues to explain this idea of the lock-in and says, with origins in football and video game culture, the term itself describes a period of hyper-focus in order to get stuff done. Online, locking in has become the ultimate Gen Z mantra. People post about locking in at the gym, locking in at work, locking in to finish books, locking in to stay hydrated, and locking in to simply get through the day. A bit of nuance is obviously needed here because all of those things that Cunningham just mentioned are good things. To be more well-read, to be better at the gym, to be fitter, healthier, more hydrated. None of these things in themselves are necessarily bad. In fact, most people would say they're good things to focus on. But I think this context of the Great Lock-In is really interesting because what this lock-in comes with is not necessarily just, I'm going to hone in on this skill. It's, I'm going to isolate myself and hibernate for the next 3 months so that I only focus on this skill and actually end up cutting out a lot of really positive things in my life, like having fun and seeing my friends, just so that I can say at the end of this year that I've actually perfected my gym routine or my hydration. If socializing isn't part of your lock-in pledge, which for a lot of people it isn't, I think that there is this cognitive dissonance because how can you self-optimize if by the end of it you're going to realize you haven't spoken to your friends in 3 months and potentially you've cut off a bunch of people that are really meaningful? I mean, we speak about it a lot on this podcast, but connection is like the key to pretty much all facets of life. Honestly, I'm going to say that really, really intense, dramatic statement, but I actually don't think it's that dramatic to say. There have been so many studies. I was listening to a really great podcast this morning by Jemma Sbeg. It's Psychology of Your 20s. I'm sure most of you have heard of it. And she was interviewing Amina Altai. And both of them were saying that one of the keys to living a long, healthy life is meaningful connections with people. That ties in so much with what we talk about on this podcast about loneliness and the loneliness epidemic and the fact that so many of us are more connected than ever on social media, but feel more disconnected and isolated than ever as well, because we're not really getting that meaningful connection that is only really achieved through in-person catch-ups, offline third places, and weak-tie friendships and interactions with people on your commute to work or with your barista, and all of these little communication moments and connection moments throughout the day are necessary for our well-being. But connection and community have always almost been the complete opposite of capitalism and hyper-individualism, particularly in this late stage that prioritizes us as viewing ourselves as this personal brand, us as seeing ourselves as corporate entities that need to upscale, leverage ourselves, sell out ourselves essentially in order to get the jobs, because the job market is so freaking competitive, guys. Oh my God. I think we're quite lucky here in Australia. We do still have, the job market is not as competitive as it is over in London, New York, much bigger cities, much bigger demographics. But I will say it is still a bloody difficult feat to get a full-time full-time, well-paying job after a really good degree. And so this heightened level of competition that comes in the workplace means that not only are we trying to self-optimize for our employers to hire us, but also it kind of infiltrates our day-to-day lives. If we want to be better at work, we also need to make sure that we're better at home, that we're resting well, that we're using our 5 to 9 either before or after work to optimize for the working day. Like, it is kind of crazy when you look at them together. And yet this idea of hibernating, a lot of the Great Lock-In does talk about disconnecting from your phone, and a lot of the commentary around this particular Great Lock-In is that a lot of Gen Z are feeling like we're consuming things so passively on our phones. We're always scrolling, we're always doom scrolling. It feels like, again, this lack of control element is coming back. But there's a very specific aspect of this where it's so digital. So much of our lives is online. Literally, no one wants high screen time. Speak to anyone. I can guarantee not a single person is going to be like, I'm trying to get my screen time up. No one wants that. And yet we feel so addicted to these devices because they're literally designed as slot machines. And I don't think I can ever fault someone for opting to be more offline. But I think the thing is, why am I hearing so much about the Great Lock-In then? Why is the Great Lock-In all over my social media feed? Why is everyone talking about it? Why is there a hashtag? 50-year-old me had a point. Why is there a Great Lock-In hashtag? So much of Gen Z, we view self-optimization in a way that's almost more dedicated to the appearance of self-optimization and the performance of self-optimization rather than actual act of self-optimization. And this is in many, many ways due to capitalism and the digital world and culture that we live in. And as Cunningham states in her Vox article, this really falls into this broader aspirational style of content that we've been seeing ever since COVID. It almost reminds me of Substack, actually. I feel like a lot of people on Substack are constantly talking about being offline, but it's like, wait, guys, are we not all online? Like, I love Substack. I love opinion pieces on being offline. I love the digital detox conversation. I also have had that conversation in an episode before. But there is a real performative nature of it because ultimately we're having these conversations online. Kiara Wilkinson also wrote about the Great Lock-In for British Vogue, and she told Cunningham in that Vox article that Gen Z are focusing on the Great Lock-In to feel in control of their lives in an economy that seemingly offers little security. I think the sadness of this trend is thinking about what people who are participating in the Great Lock-In or self-optimization are expecting to happen when the 1st of January comes. What is the goal here? What is the feeling that is being expected to arrive when you finish this 3 months of almost military style hardship? Right? Like, maybe you'll feel a huge bout of achievement. And as you should, if you focused for 3 months on something, well done, props to you. But are you going to just trigger an early onset burnout? Putting yourself through that kind of intensity and cutting yourself off from so many people and cutting yourself off from having fun and letting loose over the holiday season is sad. It's, what are we living for? What are we doing this for? What are we optimizing for if not to enjoy our lives? I know what it feels like to put yourself through intense hardship and to come out the other end and go, why did I do that to myself? Like, truly, why? What was the point of that whole thing? And you do look back on it in the future and you go, yeah, I probably still would have been here where I am today without putting myself through that intense turmoil to get to the point that I thought I needed to be, to have that tangible, physical, materialistic achievement, to get that mark that you thought was going to change your life. And you come out the other side and you realize, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it did. From my experience, which I will talk about in a little bit, feelings of anxiety, deep levels of stress, the health impacts that come with all of that are genuinely not worth it. I think it's really interesting that a lot of New Year's resolution trends really don't have a lot to do with this holistic idea of the person. A lot of the times the ones that we see on social media, for example, are more materialistic aligned and often don't really center mental health, at least as part of the process. New Year's resolutions have really become somewhat of a religion in Western culture. This idea that the new year brings this new page, new start. And although a lot of our resolutions don't make it past the first few weeks, it's really interesting that every year, without a doubt,
we will be making them. It's the ritual of doing it that brings some kind of comfort and control. It's like, no, this year I swear, no, this is my year. This is my year. Okay, maybe it wasn't this year. Next year is my year. You don't trust me. I've written all these goals. I've written a to-do list. I know how this year is going to go. Nothing can get in my way. I get it. I fully get it. I find goals to be quite stressful, but I also find them to be quite empowering when I feel like I've written something down. If I have a list of things that are making me anxious for the day, for example, I'll write them down and go, yes, that's okay. I've written them down. It's all going to be okay. Is it okay? Sometimes no. The fact that I wrote them down makes me feel better and more calm about what's going to happen. I know the steps. Problem is, obviously, unexpected things happen. We're not in control of our lives, and that is what it means to be human, and it's tricky. But I think what we've really been seeing recently is the difficulty in distinguishing consumerism and materialism with New Year's resolutions. And I think this comes kind of hand in hand with this newer level of marketing that's really erupted during social media. Erupted? Sorry. Sometimes the words that I say on this podcast, I'm like, huh? Anyway, that's really come through with social media is this idea that brands are not selling you their product. No. They're selling you the lifestyle that their product is just a small part of. To have the lifestyle, you need their product. But first and foremost, they're selling you the identity and the idea of someone that you could be if you just bought their thing. And then you could potentially mold into this cool girl, this optimized version, this awesome, incredible, party chic, amazing queen. Who wouldn't want to be her? Because identity is so tied into marketing, it's very, very easy to think, well, if I want to be fitter in 2026, I simply need this garment. Sorry, that was a dig at myself. To feel better about yourself, about your appearance, about who you are as a person might involve buying new clothes, new makeup, new skincare. Issue I have with it is not the goal here. The goal to feel better about yourself is great. But when that goal is inherently tied with a particular product or particular things that you need to buy, we almost enter into this like psychology where we start thinking that, right, well, if I don't have that thing, then I can never be the better version of myself. It really eliminates the opportunity to just start with what you have, because honestly, most of the time, most of the broad goals that we have to feel better about ourselves, to feel healthier, to journal more, to feel more in touch with our values, most of those things do not actually require gadgets at the early stages. Most of those things you can just start doing with what you have and then figure it out. If you're starting to think in the way that is, well, I can't start until I have the thing, you're doing yourself a disservice. You're actually self-sabotaging yourself from getting to where you want to be. I read this really fantastic piece, which was actually written for Cambridge University's student magazine called Varsity, and it was by Madeline Whitmore, and she wrote about this surface level idea of self-invention that comes with these visions of success on social media and how it's so intrinsically tied with aesthetics and consumerism. And I just really liked the way that she put it. Social media is to self-expression what corn is to sex. A simulacrum, a method of cyclical, phony gratification that briefly satiates a base desire for intimacy and connection, but in reality chips away at our own conceptions of ourselves. I don't wear blush, I'm a tomato girl. I'm not lonely, I'm having a sad girl's summer. I don't just like Buffy's outfits, I'm a fairy core Y2K dream punk indie sleaze nymphet coastal grandmother girl. I consume and think the void is being filled. I am getting better, I am becoming lovable, I am becoming. I am reinventing myself every day, I am on an endless journey of eternal girlhood. I am constructing a self, I am having a glow up. In this context, how on earth do we ever segregate the appearance of self-optimization and improvement from the reality of it? So in light of all this, what can we do, and how do we navigate this period of time where everyone feels like everyone is just locking in? And honestly, it's a lot. It's a lot to be a consumer of this kind of content. What do we do? And how do we remain ambitious in light of all this? Because I do think a knee-jerk reaction would be, right, well, I'm going to start off 2026 and be an absolute bum, which is kind of iconic. Like, I'll give it power to you, but also we don't have to eliminate our ambitious desires, because I am a very, very ambitious person. I'm also quite anti-capitalism, and that doesn't necessarily align. And sometimes I'm like, am I a phony? Like, am I a fraud? What's going on? Ooh. God, I got a little bit excited there. But I think that there is a way to remain ambitious and goals aligned without doing it in a way that ends up in self-turmoil, self-judgment, and potentially self-sabotage because we've made it too hard for ourselves. I was actually just going to talk about this from a personal perspective for this part of the episode, but I came across this piece which essentially just happened to align with everything I've been doing. So perfect. I popped it in. It was a piece for The Cut by Marianne Eloise. Essentially, Eloise wrote, "There's a better way to make resolutions, which is this process of intention setting and not the traditional resolution setting. According to Monica Berg, the difference is that intentions are about being, while resolutions are about doing. Goals exist at a set point in the future. Intentions exist here and now. If your resolution is about transformation and growth, it's also an intention." Eloise continued, "While resolutions often contain value judgments, intentions should come from a place of compassion." Intention setting is actually what I did this year, and I have to say it's one of the best things I've ever done when it comes to starting the new year. Again, I feel like it's such a dramatic thing and I feel like Diary of a CEO right now, but get me on the podcast. Steven, I'm over here, Steven. I'm not just saying this. I think 2025 has been the best year on the books for me. Okay, we need to do a little bit of a deep dive in it. Let's wind it back. Let's wind back the tapes, okay? Because when I was born...
So we moved to LA. My father gets a job at the Palm restaurant. My Uncle Junior works there, who is a Jehovah's Witness.
I feel like I've always been an anxious person. I feel like throughout my entire life, I have lived with anxiety. And I just remember as a child being so shy, but also so just like concerned. Like, it's a part of me. It's cool. I've learned to live with it and love it. And it is a part of who I am. And I wouldn't be who I was today if it was not for that. But I think that knowing that's a part of me, this year was the first time I kind of took that into my own hands and was like, you know what? I actually don't need to seek out environments that make me feel anxious. Because what I think I realized I've been doing, because I'm so used to this feeling of anxiety that is just kind of like an underlying norm for me, I feel like I've almost sought out really high stress environments so I can go, well, no, that's the reason I'm anxious. Like that I'm anxious, but at least I can pin my anxiety to it. I know why I am stressed. And I feel like I have existed for so long in that high stressful environment, seeking out stressful situations because that has been my norm, which is just not fun for me and anyone else around me. So this year was kind of like my first year out of uni, and I just decided like I just did not want to operate at this frequency anymore. I did not want to seek it out. I wanted to incorporate balance into my life. And so that was one of my huge intentions for 2025. And what was so powerful about this was it was almost like an anchor for me because I could look to it as kind of like this guiding principle. Any decision I made, I would go back to, does this align with my intention of balance? Does this bring balance to my life? Am I operating in a way that's aligning with this intention right now? The difficult thing with intention setting is potentially it does require a little bit more of a deep self-reflection because it's not just necessarily these ideas of, oh, I could get fitter, I'll pop that down, or I could eat healthier, or I could do this. It's kind of looking at like the root reasons why you're not currently operating at like the best version of yourself. And that can be quite confronting, I suppose. And it honestly requires a bit of reflection on some hard truths about who you are as a person and like how you've been operating and where you could change certain elements of your life. But what I like about it is that it is an overarching principle. Like it can govern everything in your life. Like it doesn't have to be so niche to a specific aspect of who you are. Balance has been something that I find it very, very, very hard to incorporate without a reminder. Like anyone who knows me knows that like I will hyper focus on a particular thing. And then honestly, I've been doing great lock-ins since I was about 16. Talk about a great lock-in. I've been in it. I've been through it. I get it. This idea that you think you need to hibernate in order to achieve your goals. Just from my perspective, that came out of a huge, deep feeling of uncertainty and anxiety about not being able to do the things I wanted to do. I really know what it feels like to have gone through a huge period of burnout and come out the other end and kind of wonder why the hell you put yourself through that. Like in my year 12 exams, I really put myself under ridiculous levels of stress to get a grade that I thought I needed or wanted or I just wanted to almost push myself to see how hard I could go. And while I think there is definitely something powerful in showing yourself you can do hard things, sometimes there's a point where it's like, hey, you probably didn't need to do it to that extent. Because I was also going through some other stuff during that period, and I came out the other end and I literally said to myself when I started university, I am never going to put myself through that ever, 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 ever again. And while that was a really, really steep learning curve and good realization that throughout university, I realized that yes, I can study hard, and I did still really struggle with not viewing my grades as defining who I was as a person. I feel like the fact that I did have that experience where I realized that working and studying hard is actually so costly to my own health kind of just allowed me to be okay with not pushing myself to that point, and being okay with not getting 100% or not getting 90%, not getting 80%, you know, like all of these things where it's like, you know what, I may not have the best grades in the world, but I'm actually really enjoying myself. I still really grapple with this. Like, this is something that I think is like, it's a long-term intention, it's a long-term goal, and it's something that I think is good to consistently reflect on and check in on. And that's the good thing about intentions as well, is it recognizes that a year is actually quite a short period of time in the long run. Having lived through this last year, using balance as a guiding principle just highlights to me that it may sound silly to so many of you, but it really highlights to me that you can achieve probably some of the most incredible, most exciting, best things ever when you're also living a balanced and happy life. In fact, I would even potentially argue that you are more likely to achieve your goals and all the exciting things when you have incorporated balance into your life. Honestly, intentions I could rave about them forever and ever and ever. And I think the nice thing about them, again, is that they really don't really have to have anything to do with capitalism. They don't have to have anything to do with so many different things that come with New Year's resolutions. And they can be so personalized to you, as broad as you want them, as narrow as you want them. Other thing I was thinking about when I was writing this episode and I was researching for it, and I was just doing some reflection on like, what will my intentions be for 2026? I honestly think maybe I'll keep them the same. Like, I think what's nice about intention setting is that you don't have to change them in the new year. Sometimes people get to the end of their year, they go, that was such a great year, I want to stay the same. And that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to optimize. Sometimes being better and optimizing is maintaining a level of contentedness with your life. And it's almost freeing to be like, you know what? I have all the time in the world. This is my intention. I'm going to consistently check in on it. Anytime I make a decision and I feel uncertain, I'm going to have a look at my intention. Does it align? How could I make it more aligned? And it's just like a good way to live. I'm not going to tell you how to live. Everyone should live however they want to. But I just really think that this is a very meaningful way to start your year, and it doesn't bring the level of anxiety and stress that so much of this can. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing really well. Again, a huge thank you to anyone who's ever tuned in, listened to the pod, shared it with a friend, left it on mute, commented, liked, hate watched, sent it to your best friend and gone, who is this? Thank you. Like, it actually all means so much to me, and you're really, really awesome people. Really excited to hear what you think about this, and if you've ever done like intention setting as a way to kind of start off the new year. If you have any other ideas as well about different ways of approaching this period, and absolutely love to hear it. But in the meantime, I will see you guys so soon. I hope you have a restful period over the summer or winter, depending on where you are. Love you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.